It's time for love. It's time for your love coach. Let's find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki Lee.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki Lee. Today, we are going to talk to Master Joshua and Karma Said. Now, we're also going to discuss a book called Surviving Master Joshua, the BDSM memoir of an unfaithful wife. So, folks, I want you to put the kids to bed first. Just put the kids to bed. We're going to have an adult conversation. And we're going to... All right, Karma pays. All right, now... we're going to have an adult conversation, and we're going to kind of dig into some information that I think you're going to find interesting. We're going to find out some information that you may not expect about this topic. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome my guest. It's awesome to have you two with me today.
Thank you so much for having us on. I'm really excited to connect.
You know, it's not, I don't usually have two guests. This is kind of neat. So it's good to have y'all with me. And let me tell y'all a little bit more about my guest. Now, Master Joshua juggles as many job titles as he does lovers. Now, see, I got to tell y'all, I had to get worked into his schedule. It was a little tough, but I did get worked in. He is a pro-dom lifestyle educator, NTSB counselor. That stands for non-traditional sexual behaviors. And I pulled that information off your website last night to kind of learn some more about that. He's a spiritual guide, life coach, photographer, and a fetish media producer. You know, you're busy with that right there all by itself.
I'm lucky that it all falls under one umbrella.
It does. I was looking all that over last night, and I was like, you know. So, well, that's like you look at my list of stuff on Facebook, and it's like, you know, it's interesting how this all it looks like a whole lot of stuff, but it all works together. You know.
Yeah.
And you're also the co-founder of the Kink Collective, which is a New York City-based leather tribe devoted to kink education and event production. Your flagship endeavor is People Before Kink, a series of online and in-person workshops focused on developing affinity and empathy. Through all his various endeavors, Joshua's goal remains the same, to relieve people of shame and fear, allowing them to live as who they truly are. You know, I looked at all that, and then I got down to that sentence, and I'm like, yes, exactly. And you know, when I was reading the first paragraph, I wouldn't have expected that last sentence, but
yeah,
exactly. You know, it's like, and the funny thing is, I just finished working with somebody on a book, and that was the whole goal of our book. And it's called Am I Normal If? And it's like the whole goal of the book is to say, you know what? It's okay to just be you. And helping people to get things.
I love that title.
Isn't that awesome? But it takes so much work to help people to just understand it's okay to be you. Forget everything else and just be you. So I love it. I just love it. And our thing, and I actually put this on one of the questions I answered on the Wisdom app last night, is our thing it's not what's normal, it's what's natural. Okay, so now that I'm getting off my soapbox, on Karma. So Karma, she had a decade-long career as a staff reporter. Now, this is going to shock y'all. I'm just going to warn you. In a reputable conservative outlet, and now she's reporting about kink. That's quite a little leap you took there, Karma. And she's the author. She's the author of Surviving Master Joshua, the BDSM memoir of an unfaithful wife. And she's an editor at Carnal Culture Publishing. I love that name, y'all. An indie publication devoted to supporting, promoting, and publishing nonfiction works of kink and erotica, which is also very fun. Okay, so I saw some of the reviews for the book and want to read the book, y'all. That's all I can tell you.
Oh,
Thank you.
It's an incredible book.
That's what I hear.
Not just because I'm the subject.
Yeah. See, I missed them. Okay, I'll make comments about that after the show. Okay. Okay, let's start with, how did you all meet? Because, I mean, none of this would have happened if y'all hadn't met. So let's start with, how did you two meet?
So I placed an ad on Craigslist. No, that's not true. That's not true.
He's just messing up my answer.
Yeah.
Okay. And on Craigslist.
I'll let her tell the story. This is her beginning.
Okay.
So, as I said, I was a reporter as you said, I was a reporter for a conservative outlet, and I was working on a color piece, sort of like a light piece about kink and religion, the intersection of kink and religion. And and Master Joshua was the person who hosted the event from which I was hoping to draw my interviewees. He had a panel about the topic, and I attended the panel, and the panel was followed by a play party, a BDSM play party, which I stayed for so I could know what I am reporting on, because I can't, write about an experience without attending the experience.
Well, of course, yeah.
And that was the premise we met under. So once I walked into the room, though, and it very quickly became clear to me after the play party that my interest in BDSM goes beyond the professional, and as does my interest in Master Joshua, which was inappropriate because I was married plus kids. And married plus kids.
It was interesting meeting her that evening, because I was with my former partner, at the time my partner, and she had told me about the journalist coming to sit in and interview us about BDSM and religion, and I was really excited, because my intention behind producing events is to make kink and BDSM accessible for folks who are ready to explore that part of themselves.
Right.
I have a very structured way of hosting events that a lot of people would associate more towards the old guard being pre-internet BDSM, I'll call it. And,
okay.
Because it was a much different community then. It was you were mailing each other, right, like letters and stamps, right?
Okay.
Things like that. Big difference in community and culture and the way the community operated to how it operates now. So having a platform to be able to speak about what it is we're doing, and having a journalist from a newspaper come to talk to us about it was like a great opportunity, because the intention is to normalize identity, right? And I say identity because when you open the door to BDSM, you have to ask yourself, well, who am I? Right? What am I looking to experience? Who am I looking to connect with? What does this look like? Right? It takes some introspection to really get into the meat and potatoes of this journey. So when I bumped into her in the hallway and I saw her face of surprise and amazement and wonder, it was really intense. Just recently we were talking about how impactful and raw it was for her to walk into that space, because you go from someone who is living the standard life, the expected life of married and children and a job, to you walking into a room and it's full of vulnerability and sexuality and intense emotions, right? Like 0 to 60. And that's not a perspective that I had until very recently. So the look in her face made sense. It was more than just my good looks, apparently. Just kidding.
The first time, the entrance, it really was like opening a door and falling into a different world. And
definitely.
And I was, it was instantly, I kept pursuing the story, but it was instantly clear to me that this is something that speaks to me. It kind of yelled at me. It didn't speak at me. It kind of was like, this is real, apparently. It's not just the movies. It's not some, Eyes Wide Shut. It's exists in reality, and it's showed me right away aspects of ways people are together and people. It's kind of like seeing there's more colors in the spectrum that you weren't able to see before, or there's more there's new feelings, there's new sensations that when you thought you knew everything already. And that was my take from the first 15 minutes. So the whole book.
Well, it's also it's sometimes it's like there's new elements of sensuality. I mean, your senses are awakened in a whole new way.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Right.
Imagine if you had permission to explore your own body without shame. And then imagine if you were able to learn that self-awareness, self-knowledge, and have a space to communicate it without judgment.
Exactly.
Right? That's it's not easy, but that's attainable with risk, right? And the risk is doing things that scare you.
Exactly. Well, just getting to, I remember when I finally got to the point where I could just get rid of the judgment for myself. That was what was so huge for me when I became a love coach. When the day I figured out that if I understood that I had to not judge my clients, and I'm like, oh, wait a second. If I have to not judge my clients, I need to stop judging me all the time.
Yeah.
And that opened the world up for me, in a way that was, I mean, that was literally, and I am not exaggerating, that was life-changing for me. So I get that. I get it.
Yeah, no, walking the walk is a big deal. I mean, even in the BDSM community, right, the idea is integrity, right? You have to be truthful in order to get to the real root of all of this stuff. And the idea of the leather community is you have to have a level of integrity to be here. But it's not always true, right? What ends up happening for folks is we find a place of comfort and we stop working at it, or we find knowledge and we emulate it as opposed to putting it into practice. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people do is and it's not even faking it till they make it. It's just faking it, right? Because they're not even aware of a making it process or part of it. It's about truth. All of it's about truth.
Well, are you doing it to your core, or are you pretending?
Exactly. Integrity can't be only when it's beneficial for you. Integrity has to be in play when it comes to the things that aren't going to work out for you in the way you think they should. Yeah. Right.
Well, are you doing it with
responsibility?
Well, are you doing it when somebody's watching, or are you doing it all the time?
Yeah, exactly. You
guys are making me feel guilty. I'm like, oh no, I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I say I was late for the bus.
No, but the truth is we're all human beings, right? And there's a difference between knowing it and doing it, right? And we try our best. Will we always make it all the time? No. But it's the fact that we're aware of it and that we're actively engaging and doing our best to achieve it.
Well, that's it. Being aware of it makes a big difference too.
Yeah.
Are we being, for sure. That's it. Are we being honest with ourselves, or are we pretending? So that's Hey.
Well, I think sometimes there's like, to be 100% candid, yeah, sometimes there's lapses, but the thing is, you got to get back on the horse.
Yeah.
As in, sometimes if you make a, and it keeps getting, it's something that you have to keep doing, because I think living with integrity has two sides of it. One is doing the right thing to begin with, but the second thing, which is a little bit harder, is like stepping up, and when you do something wrong because you're like, I can get away with it, then you'll remember it doesn't match your values, and you have to step up and be like, I did something wrong here. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway, and I'm sorry for it.
Well, and even if nobody else knows that we didn't do it right, do we fix it anyway?
Oh, yeah. I have a funny story about that. I'll take 60 seconds. So this whole integrity thing, right, doing what's right, I went into Home Depot once, and I've got a track record of this stuff now, right? So, like, I put in some time to this whole integrity thing. I go into Home Depot, and I go to buy some chain, and I come up to the register, and they wrote down the SKU number incorrectly. And when the cashier rang it up, it came up to like $4. And I was like, oh, I'll run down and get the number. They're like, listen, just go ahead and take it. So I looked at them, my head turned to the side, and I said, are you sure? And they said, yeah, don't worry about it. It's only $4. They're not going to miss it. So I take a deep breath, and I walk out the store, and I make the left. And as I'm walking past the main entrance, I turn back into, I got to the threshold of where the store ended. And I was like, dude, just go back in and get the number and pay for the change. You don't need to be carrying this karma with you. So I took myself back in there, and I got the SKU, and I paid my $4. But it's like, it has to be ingrained in you to, like, it's your natural state. But that takes a lot of hard work and a lot of courage.
Sometimes, Master, like one answer Master Joshua sometimes gives is about master-slave dynamics is it's because I'm two steps down the road. How do you say it? In the road ahead of them. Like 2 steps ahead in the journey. Already been there, done that a while ago, and now I can show you how. So that was one of those moments. Thank you, sir, for that example, because that gives me something to align to.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's like I think the more important focus right now is how fast do I rebound, right? How fast am I able to acknowledge my mistake or choice and make the adjustment to fix it? Right? That's the reality of it, right? Is I'm coming up to the problem. Am I going to address it? Am I going to just handle it right here, right now? Or am I going to try to avoid it a little longer? Because I'm going to come back to it anyway, right? It's like the trash can, right? There's a trash can, and you have a bottle of soda, and there's like a quarter left, right? Do I walk past it and hold it, or do I just drink it and finish and dump it in right now? Right? Because the next trash can is up 2 mountains. I got to carry this damn bottle with me.
Exactly.
That's a good way of thinking of it.
So dump the soda and throw it away.
Exactly. So now we've talked on my show before about ethical and unethical non-monogamy, which I'm sure comes up from time to time with your clients, and I'm thinking that Karma probably faced this in her relationship as well.
I think we were in it.
So there's a few approaches to that question around ethical non-monogamy and unethical non-monogamy, right? Like, how do we handle it? How did we handle it? Let's start with, how did we handle that?
When we started, we did not know. It wasn't sort of like a, hey, let's do this thing, right? It's a relationship that evolved slowly over time, for a long time, without setting any sort of intention. We were setting a different intention. I wanted to bring my husband in, and that did not work out for us straight off on the beginning.
He wasn't in on that. He wasn't up for that idea, huh?
Well, I started wanting to explore with him. Correction. I wanted to explore and to be shown by Joshua this. I wanted a guide, and he seemed to be able to guide us. And I wanted to open the door to learn more about this world, and I wanted to see him again too. So I followed his suggestion on what to do, and that was actually a very good moment, because he said, why don't you tell your husband you want to explore and get permission to step into this world, and tell him if he doesn't want to come, tell him you'll bring it back to him. And that's kind of how the framework in which we started. I had permission to explore, though I didn't have permission for the relationship that evolved through that exploration.
When we met, the intention wasn't to hook up or connect. It was, I mean, is she beautiful to me? I love who she is. She's the most beautiful thing on the world, almost. I like Sour Patch Kids better. but the intention wasn't to be with her. It was to provide space to make this journey accessible, because I believe for folks who are ready for this, it's a life-changing experience. I've found my value in relationships through this journey to overcome sex addiction, and I've found my connection to God through this journey. So it's very important for me, for folks who are looking to find something larger, that they can access it, because it can be very pivotal to them in life and existence, all in itself. It developed, it progressed after meeting over the podcast, over the roundtable discussion around BDSM and religion, excuse me, around the Me Too movement. And while necessary with the community, the Me Too movement definitely put a spotlight on the predators and the bad actors within the community. The pendulum, having swung so hard, went beyond the predators and became weaponized. And I fell victim to the weaponization of Me Too by being falsely accused by 2 exes consistently, back to back. It all happened within a year of itself. And karma came in right at the beginning of the first one. Mm-hmm. So she went from journalist inquiring about BDSM and religion to now the hot topic of the Me Too movement within the BDSM community.
It was a juicier story.
Right. Well,
also I was already developed a very quick crush on the guy, and you know, and anything Joshua was starting to be interesting at that point. So I'm like, well, look, this gives me more of an opportunity to look under the hood.
So with the accusations, it was incredibly painful and stressful, because how do you disprove something that didn't happen? And
exactly,
it was an opportunity for me to meet with someone who was giving me undivided attention to share my life story, so that I can show someone who, because when you're accused, no one gives you a platform. No one wants to hear what you have to say, because you're vilified. Right. And they're not really listening either. So they're not really listening either. Correct. So here comes this reporter, right? This is, if I'm going to have an opportunity to speak to someone, it's going to be this one right here, because she wants to do something with the information. So I'm going to pull back everything of myself. I'm going to show her exactly who I am, because I host events. I produce events in New York City, and I produce retreats and intensives around introspection and journey. If you're going to find, if there's something there to see, it's going to be there, right? Predator behavior isn't a one-off. It's a pattern, right?
Right.
And it's character and it's energy, right? When the Me Too movement hit, these guys vanished overnight. They combusted and they were gone. Then you had, these were the predators, the bad actors, which aren't as much as the predators, but they're almost as bad. Those guys have to be called out by multiple violations. And then when they were out of the community, that's when the disgruntled and dissolved relationships that didn't go the way one person or the other wanted, that's when they started to tweak the truths or just fabricate truths. And that's where I got pulled into it. So I have this opportunity to tell my story to a reporter who I was afraid of, right? I was afraid that something was going to be fabricated that I couldn't disprove. And all I had going for me was truth.
And charm. And charisma. Poor me, I was that reporter that he was trying to win over. He put way too much charm and charisma into it. I fell backwards head over heels, and then he was like, oh, now she's madly in love. That was more than I bargained for.
And here we are, 5 years later.
He showed me the truth, and then then some. Here's the truth about you too.
Yeah.
Here's the truth about what you really want from life. I'm like, I just walked in.
Yeah, it's this. When you go onto this journey of introspection through BDSM, things happen very fast, right? Because you get a sense of security and safety, understanding you're in a space with others who are trying to talk about these taboo topics. So there's an innate level of vulnerability or expected vulnerability just because we're both on this journey, right? So you're taking bigger steps, taking bigger risks because of that commonality.
Mm-hmm.
So our relationship developed from it was almost like teacher-student, yet we were adversaries. Like she was going to grow up to be a kung fu master too and take me out with her story. So it was
a Karate Kid version on Karate Kid when he hits teenage years, I guess.
And over that time is when I tried to circumvent ethics, morals with ethics, and that I believe in karma as my universal law, right? The big K karma. What you give is what you get. And in the time that I spent with her, and the safety that she gave me it's hard to say safety, but I felt safe enough to be open, right, and take the risk. And you develop feelings for a person, right, especially when you feel valued.
Right.
So the desire to give her more and more of myself, to the literal point now at this point, because that's my love language is physical touch. Like that's how I best show someone how I feel with and for them. And as her attraction to me grew, and she was, from where I was standing, my point of concern was her consent with me. Ethically, I didn't need anyone else's consent aside from hers. Everything else beyond that was her choice. Morally, that's incorrect. Morally, everyone should be on the same page. If not, we should be talking about how do we get there, or if it's even viable. But that was never a solution because I never gave that option, because I didn't take the big step to stop things. I went with my own personal desire as opposed to doing what was right. So our connection essentially was built on a broken foundation.
There did come a point later down the road where you can't really build for long term on a broken foundation. I mean, because I was morally in the wrong from the beginning, kind of not being upfront with my husband, and then at a certain point kind of outright lying, that is not a sustainable way. Just life goes to hell. Life becomes hell when that's your life.
True.
And there was this adversity, and there was need, and there was connection, and there was reliance between me and Joshua, but there was an adversity because I would not he'd say, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And I'd just say, "I'm too scared. It won't work," and I wouldn't do it. And it was getting. But the reason I was too scared, the reason is because I didn't trust Joshua, because I didn't understand what polyamory is really. In my eyes, he was. What was happening was that there's this guy here who has lots of girls, and I'm just one of them, and I made the mistake of letting him in too deep, and I shouldn't love him in the first place because he has lots of girls. And that must mean that I don't mean much to him, and that in that scenario, his advice is not, in my best interest, right? If he doesn't really care about me, I shouldn't really take his advice, because who knows what he's thinking about, or who's that for,
Well, and you were still in your relationship with your husband and thinking in that mentality, and not understanding the poly mentality. So, yeah, it would be hard to exist in both of those and trying to understand the two different mentalities at the same time. So,
right.
yeah,
I was a cheater in my eyes. I was a cheater in my eyes, and so I thought as Joshua as a sort of, also sort of a cheater, only with his consent. Like, they said yes because they want him. So, kind of like what I'm doing. But it's kind of like he's two-timing on everybody. That was I didn't think it in those words, but it was sort of in the back of my mind that I'm a cheater. That means he's just it's a lens. It's not even not even a words formulated into a sentence. It's kind of like the color or the lens you view the life through. If you're cheating, everybody else must be rotten too, in a way. So you can't trust yourself and you can't trust anybody. That's just how it feels. Life feels like when you're cheating.
Yeah, that's the energy.
But I came to him and I said, I can't do it. I need help. And
ultimately, what that was leading two different lives with a lot of conflict of desire and wanting to abandon, right?
Yeah, both, wanting to, wanting to jump off the ship, but wanting to be on it.
So that dilemma was creating a lot of inner turmoil, mentally, emotionally, right, psychologically, and we hit a point where I realized what I wasn't doing was the amount of time we had invested with each other, which at this point was now a year about, right?
Yeah.
Of intense communications, conversations, emotional reflections, the current state of events as I was still going through the pressures of these accusations. And the thing that I was missing was acknowledging the role that she was playing in my life and the level of trust that she was giving me to be safe with me, right? It was really, I was really connected to her. And what dawned on me is that if she gave me the trust, I would be her dominant, but she would have to trust me. And it would have to be without a doubt. Because I think up to that point, I have done everything as best as I could with truth. And it was like this was the point, the turning point. Either if you want to be my submissive, this is what we had to do. And we had to plan on fixing the problems as opposed to abandoning the problem. And that was, she had to tell her husband everything that was happening. Because I couldn't be her dominant if we didn't have that level of transparency and doing what was right. Getting back to square one.
Yeah, he said, I would like you could be my submissive and I could be your dominant if you wanted to. And I would get you a collar and you would wear my collar and you can have the collar. You earn that collar by telling your husband about us. and I'll be there for you, and I will help you, and I'll support you throughout the way, and your well-being will be my responsibility, but you have to do what I say. And we basically built a bridge back to a functional family life first. We worked through the stuff that wasn't working in my family life together, and Joshua would tell me what to do and how to fix it. Or not even, he would tell me the steps I need to take, what needs to happen, how does the dynamic between my children and myself and my husband need to change for me to move closer to a position in life in which I'm okay, I'm ready to tell my husband that I have a master. And that was difficult but to do. But we did build up to it, and in that, I'm just realizing it's that now, but in that period of 1 or 2 months where I just did tasks around the house and just did, Joshua would tell me, do so-and-so, and I would do it. And it would be stuff that I've been sitting on for years and wasn't able to do. And suddenly, with his help, with his, just with his will behind me, I could do these things. And that built the trust that was necessary, the faith that was necessary to step up and say, I didn't tell you the whole truth until now. I didn't tell you the whole truth until now, and there's another man, and this man, I've been sexual with him. And
so how has your husband reacted to all this? And are you still with your husband?
Yes. Originally, her and David, when did we meet?
The first time we met, it's described in, so the first time we met, which is described in the end of the book of Surviving Master Joshua, David, and me are in, we met for a drink in a munch. It was after a year of me and Joshua being together.
It was, they are still married. So the intention behind our relationship, while it's intimate, the goal isn't the intimacy, right? The sexual part of it. The goal is to help each other achieve goals and purpose in life, to support each other's purpose in life, to be fulfilled and content. With the amount of space that she has given me from the first day we met until today, the amount of personal growth that I've gotten to experience just from her accountability to me has been. You learn what relationships are about, right? That they're not about just the fun, about the sex and the partying, but they're about the vulnerability and helping each other be the better versions of themselves. Getting to watch her become that better mother and better wife that she's been wanting to be, just through support, has been fulfilling, life fulfilling, right? And that's the purpose behind our dynamic, from where I sit. Now, the title sex slave, which is something that is newer, when someone hears the title slave, it's a lot of people see it as a less than role, right? And if people understood how powerful and how much of a dominant woman Karma is, and that the title slave is about commitment to being present, commitment to holding space, to feel safe, is how we get to culminate, how I get to how I get to receive my share of the energy exchange, right? The intimacy that we get to share is unfiltered, and I get to be my whole self. So
right.
There's a freedom in that people wouldn't understand until you actually get to dip your toe into unfiltered intimacy. And
well, and the slave plays a very supporting role.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
which I think people completely miss. You know, I mean, that you need that support, and I don't know another good word right this moment, but it's you need that person to be there. You know, it's that assist, that knowing that person is there and has your back, you know, that's going to be there to. I'm seeing it in my head, and I'm not putting it into words.
It's almost like mentorship, right? We were mentors for each other in perspective, and her life experiences were able to guide me to find better versions of myself, and mine for her, right? To be accountable with and for each other, and to hold space for mentorship and guidance.
But I mean, I've got that kind of relationship with a couple people where we're just there for each other, because sometimes you need to have that sounding board and the person that can complete your sentences and help you to work through things and to brainstorm and to, you know, that you know is there to help you to work through things and talk through it and get through it and you know, that kind of a thing that you need that other perspective to get through and put things together and to get it out the door, you know, to get it done and to be accountable. So I completely get that. Now sometimes there is additional too, you know, but that's not the overall focus all the time.
Yes.
But interesting. You know, I was thinking when you were talking too about her getting the information and pulling the information out of you and writing the article, that actually had the flip that whole master-slave dynamic, because she actually had the power over you at that time. But I've also had people, because I interviewed Nina Hartley and Ernest about BDSM, and they were saying that there were so many times when, even as a slave, she was the one that had the power over so many of their interactions with one another. You know, that him as the dom didn't necessarily have the power, but her as the slave actually had more of the power in their exchanges with one another. What do you think about that?
I don't think that the interview was a form, you know, wearing the journalist hat was, and later on the author hat. It is a form of power, but I used it more as a form of seduction, I think.
Oh, well, okay, there is that part of an interview also.
She said, if you don't become my dominant, I'm gonna write up this hit piece.
No. It was no. It was not like that. You know, you may have acted out of that motive, like, you know, let me keep her in my good pocket.
So
but she could have. So.
Yes, no, it's to read her as we got closer, and she was able to write my thoughts. Like, I would tell her things about myself, and she would bring pieces back to me, and the way she would describe it was incredibly beautiful. And to have someone who has spent time studying me, it was kind of intense, right? Kind of surreal, but that's what happened.
It's interesting to see ourselves through somebody else's eyes and have somebody else to describe us, you know. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying that as a reporter writing an article about you in that situation, she did have that's not how she chose to use it, but she did have that power and could have used it that way.
Yeah, I had fangs. That's why we circled for so long, like in a wrestling ring. That's why we just kept circling, because it felt almost because of my journalist position or title, it felt almost like equal adversaries, like people who need to be careful of each other. But I was head over heels. I was carrying my heart on my sleeve. I just wanted to put it on his plate and say, "Here's my heart, please." But this whole journalist thing was getting in the way. It wasn't. it wasn't like we are. It wasn't like how's it called, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Where they're equally powerful foreign agents that are against each other. It wasn't equal. I wanted to give in to him from the moment he put his hand on me, which was like a week later. It was completely casual, but I was like, okay, take me. Please, I'd like to surrender to you. Where do I sign?
And I didn't see it like that. I saw it adversarial because of what I was experiencing at that time. I was not in a good place.
Plus, I come out a little hard sometimes.
So, okay, Joshua, I've got another question with a slightly different thing here. You were talking about the spiritual aspect of the work that you do. So, how does, and I'm sure the audience picked up on this, so I've got to kind of delve into this. And since you all did meet in a forum and a talk, a panel that you were doing about religion and BDSM, how does being a sex worker constitute spiritual guidance? I got to delve into that a little bit with you.
Yes, this is going to be a great one. So if you have socks on, if you don't have socks on, put them on, because I'm going to blow them off. You ready for this?
Okay.
We're going to start with two definitions.
Okay.
Spirituality is your relationship with yourself, how you treat yourself through your belief system, right? Your belief system can be anything you want. Like for me, I believe in karma. Karma is my currency. I believe what you put out is what you get. And when I say I believe in it, I believe that is what is governing existence, is karma. Right now, religion is how you treat other people under your belief system. Right? That's the definition of religion, the action of religion. Now, whatever people choose to put into that slot of belief is their choice. They can put in Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism, any belief system they want. That's their choice that they put in there. Now, the integrity part lies in, are they following their belief system, or are they emulating what they believe is supposed to be their chosen religion, right? Because those are two different things too. If you're emulating the book, you're going to behave one way. If you are operating under the beliefs of the book, if you're walking the walk, you're going to live in a different way. Those are not the same things. Like you got the street preachers out there who go out there shouting at everyone that people are going to burn and all this stuff. They are emulating what they're reading. They don't believe it, but they think they'll find salvation. Maybe they do believe it, fanatically, but they're emulating what they're reading. They haven't taken the steps to ask themselves, what do I feel about this internally? Right? Is it fear that's making me operate this way, and why? Right? So anyway, so spirituality and religion defined. How I treat others, religion. How I treat myself, spirituality. Sex workers, not all sex workers. Not all sex workers. Only those who have done the introspective work to understand the value of holding space and understand that, we're all where we're at, right? And there's no right or wrong way to do it. With that being said, there are some folks who have no idea what they're doing and the power that they have when they hold space for a person to come in and say, this is who I am and this is what I need. And you give it to them. right? There's a healing element of that to a degree. For some, it's being satiated. For others, and satiated, they're scratching the itch. They're medicating themselves. For others, like myself, when I get clients, if they're in a relationship, I ask them, why doesn't if their partner doesn't know, why? Like, we're going to work on getting you right on the side of karma before we move forward, because the level of work that we're going to do is going to be life-changing. You're going to tell me things you've never shared with anyone, and I'm not going to judge you. And that's the first step. Right? And then after that, where do we go from here? Well, where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What is it that you're looking to experience? And what is it that you're missing out of life? Tell me this stuff, because I'm going to ask you more increasingly personal questions. I have an intake form that takes about 5 hours to complete. It's 100 questions and all I'm asking you to do is reflect on your life so we can talk about it. Upon that reflection, right, you're actualizing your existence, right? You're speaking your truth to someone who you've probably never spoken to this stuff about before, to anyone. And in that process, you start to heal through trauma, by reliving moments, and we talk through what is empowerment, what does taking power over those moments look like, right? What was it about it that got you from point A to point B? Like, we break down what you have going on so that when you walk through that door with me, you can trust me. And you don't have to think about anything, and you can be present with me, and we can go through the motions that we're going to go through so that you can experience vulnerability in a space that you're going to be respected, right? Like, there was one gentleman who I worked with who was in his mid-50s, and he was never allowed to cry as a child. When he got spanked or when he got scolded, nothing. So he came to me, and he asked if we could do a spanking session, and after our time spent together, it was boiled down to he wasn't allowed to cry as a child, and he's carried that with him for 40 years. So when we got together, we went and did our scene, and we did the spanking, and I had to reiterate and give him permission repeatedly that he had permission to cry until he finally cried. Now, people go to sex workers for many different things. The people that I'm working with are looking to change their lives in one manner or another by speaking their truth and actualizing their desire by action. I will walk you through everything you need to do to hit your potential, to at least to understand your potential, to know it's not out of reach. It's just going to take some work.
Right.
So that's my fulfillment, and that's how now, if you look at religious texts, right, they all boil down to the same thing, right? Don't be a bad person, right? Be kind, be able to defend yourself, right? Be violent if necessary to defend yourself. Love openly, open heart listening, feed the poor, right? Remain judgment free, hold space. They all say the same things in one degree or another. What I'm doing and what we do is we hold space with openness and transparency so you can speak your truth and we can see you without judgment. It's the same thing. The only difference is we're able to help you be actionable on it. Right? We help you walk the walk as opposed to talking the talk.
Interesting.
And in that, like, I found my connection to God through BDSM. I took a photo. I do photography, as we mentioned, and I took a photo of my former slave in a submissive position. And I look at it, and I go, man, Jim has a lot of faith in me. He believes, he trusts that I will always have his best interest at heart. Now, Jim being a human being and me being a human being, it didn't come without fear and hesitation at times and non-compliance at times. And we would talk and walk and work through it, right? It's like, what happened and why? Why did it fail? Or how did it succeed? So the faith was built through consistent action and through consistent results. And then I said, who else has faith like that? And I said, religious people, either indoctrinated or experienced faith, they still have faith. It's the same thing. I said, well, what do I have faith in? And I sat for a few, and karma came back, right? The positive out, positive return, negative out, negative return. And I had that moment to admit to myself that I do believe in a higher power, in a governing force, right? And that gives a person freedom, right? Belief gives you permissions to act and behave certain ways, right? To say I have faith, I have faith that if I put out positive, negative won't return. That means I don't have to second guess myself. That type of permission, right? That permission of when I hit a hard time, I understand that it's a time, it's a moment, and it'll pass because I've earned good time too, right? So those types of permissions, not permissions to be an idiot.
Too many people give themselves permission to do that. Interesting. So for people who think they're curious about kink, what just a couple minutes, what kind of advice would you give them?
I believe everyone's into kink. What I believe is the difficult part is finding someone who is trustworthy enough to be vulnerable with. If you're with someone and you're not able to talk to them openly, ask yourself why. What is it that I don't trust about this person, that I don't feel vulnerable? Have they done something, said something? Am I being overly cautious? Am I not giving them the opportunity to prove to me that I can be vulnerable? Do I feel seen and heard? Right? The intensive that we have is built around that, around how do I find authenticity and take action on it by experiencing it and not just by reading about it.
I would say there comes a time where if there comes a time where you found yourself facing what you desire and wanting to follow what you desire in one hand and wanting to do the right thing according to the rules on the other hand, and it's a conflict, then don't let go of either of them. Keep them both. Say yes to following what you desire and to yes to doing the right thing according to your beliefs and the beliefs of society and the people around you, but just find a way that they become both a yes. Make the changes that need to happen, the conversations that need to happen, the decisions that need to happen, and the changes that need to happen so you can have both.
I'm gonna reframe this quote that this brilliant woman told me, and it's gonna go something along these lines. Don't worry about what's normal. Ask yourself what's natural.
Oh, beautiful. I love it.
You get points for that.
No, but what you said is brilliant, right? Because midlife crisis is you've been doing too much normal stuff. You haven't asked yourself, well, what's natural for me?
Exactly. And
right,
you should
that's
read the
midlife
book.
crisis. Well, listen, I'm going to use that. that boils it down so easily.
Doesn't it? So how can they find more about y'all?
So I can be found under masterjoshua.com, kinkcollective.net, that's KINK collective.net, ssdce.org, which stands for Sanctuary for Spiritual Development and Consciousness Expansion. All these websites, all the work that I do is around personal development and spiritual growth. My intention is to leave this planet better than the way I found it. And I do believe that if we were to find authenticity within ourselves, we can turn the tide of humanity from destroying what we have, because what we have is precious. And if we keep up this pace, it's not going to be precious for much longer. Also on social media under Master Joshua NYC.
Awesome.
If you're looking for the book is Surviving Master Joshua, the BDSM Memoir of an Unfaithful Wife by Karma Said. Then you can Google Surviving Master Joshua. A lot of options will come up. And you can go to survivingmasterjoshua.com, you can get it from there as well. The book is on sale on Amazon for $1 through August, because until August, I just want a lot of people to read it and the message to get for it. I don't want people to be held back by money. So until the end of August, it's for $1 on Amazon. And you can find the publication at carnalculturepublishing.com. You'll find everything about the publication. If you have anything that you want to say and you don't have how to say it, then I am there for you.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here today. And we will certainly see if we can't get some people to pick the book up. Listeners, I'll be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.